Have you ever sat down and wondered if things as we know there could be more than meets the eye? And no, I'm not talking about our everyday curiosity of trying to learn new things and ultimately question the principles behind them. Why do scientists postulate that the beginning of the universe, or rather our universe, began because of the Big Bang? When in actuality it isn't. I'm not arguing the whole entirety, but only the fact that its cause was because of someone and not something. We accept the notion, leading most of us to assume that the world around us is accurate. We take for granted that everything we interact with is the true essence of reality and not an illusion created by someone else. After all, this world is all we've ever known, as our everyday life is intricately shaped by our various exposures to different realities, whether it be subjective, objective, or a consensus experience. As a result of such, our beliefs are like internal commands to the brain as to how to represent what is happening when we congruently believe something to be true. But what really is true, or what made years' worth of the Earth's history disappear without a trace? And could we be able to produce a superficial reality for ourselves? Let's start way back at the very beginning to question what the truth is. Not the Earth's beginning, but that of the entire universe. According to scientists and scientific theories, the universe came to be because of the prevailing scientific theory called the Big Bang. It suggests that the universe began as a singularity, a tiny, infinitely hot and dense point, approximately 13.8 billion years ago. Following the Big Bang, the universe rapidly expanded and continues to do so, leading to the formation of galaxies, stars, planets, and eventually, the diverse cosmos we observe today. But as we all know, not everyone agrees with that. Ask a theist, and they'll tell you they believe that the universe was created by a divine entity and has some degree of influence over it, and the universe is a representation of their divinity. But one thing both have in common is that the universe was just there, with nothing having any influence over it, and occurrences before it aren't known. Then, boom, or, at the command of a divine entity, the universe came to be. Now, if we peer at the theory of panpsychism, which supports this preposition, the idea states that everything in the universe possesses some form of consciousness. But that doesn't mean innate objects are conscious and have daily activities to go about. It means the tiny particles of which they're made have some kind of basic experience. Thus, saying this can also be likened to that of our brains. But what really is the universe? Some vastness of space, matter, energy, and time. Or could it be more than it entails? Maybe a pre-programmed conscious and living entity created by some advanced civilization? We've been told stories of groundbreaking discoveries by renowned scientists and innovators, and probably some of us have been alive to witness these discoveries from mere assumptions to prevailing concepts. The universe, albeit cryptic, holds many enigmas and many questions still unanswered. But one thing that occurs in each scientific unearthing is that with each discovery there arises an equal paradox that either conflicts with that theory, or another equally and mind-boggling question that yet shapes our reality. But one concept we do know is that the universe as a whole is expanding exponentially. In a study performed by astronomer Edwin Hubble in 1929, he observed that when he looked at faraway galaxies, they were moving away from us, and this movement was faster the farther they were, thus leading to the discovery that the universe is expanding. But what does the universe expanding have to do with it being a conscious living entity? The universe, as we know it, contains galaxies, stars, dark energy, dark matter, and ordinary matter. And believe it or not, all these are intricately connected in one way or the other. This observable behavior could be likened to that of a human brain. I know this may sound superficial, but hear me out. Believe it or not, the universe and humans are more similar than you think. Even though these two networks are vastly different in size, analysis shows that they share similar levels of complexity and self-organization. In each system, they are connected in a complex way, like a network with long lines and points that link them together. They both take in data and process it as information to produce something as a result. Depending on the nature of the information, this process of absorbing and processing information in the brain leads to decisions and actions. When you see a red traffic light, for example, your brain interprets the data and urges you to come to a complete stop. The universe also absorbs and spontaneously processes information, such as the movements of stars and galaxies. This can lead to the development of new celestial bodies like planets or stars, as well as other cosmic events. Ultimately, this cycle of data received and information produced acts like some preset cosmic code. Physics points out the idea that everything, including the fundamental building blocks of the universe, can be described as information and not particles. This means that the way information is organized and processed is crucial in understanding the nature of reality. Because the building block of the universe is reliant on its information, it does raise eyebrows about what was there before the universe came into being. Maybe a universe that was once like ours, but ran its course of time and met its expected demise. According to Newton's third law, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The universality of this law, which applies to nearly everything in the cosmos except black holes, this should give us enough reason to ponder the actual nature of the universe's existence, given that the universe couldn't have been born from nothing but rather the influence of an external being, or rather a higher form of civilization beyond our current understanding. But what do you think? The concept that our entire universe might be nothing more than an intricate simulation is not a modern revelation. There seem times when the cosmos appears to conspire against us, leading to what we commonly term a bad day. It makes us ponder whether reality itself might be scripted. Well, you're not entirely wrong. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom introduced his famous simulation theory, in which he explores the probability that we are all living inside an artificial simulation. Bostrom discusses how a future society could become so technologically advanced that its inhabitants learn how to generate complex artificial worlds using powerful computers. When we think about the progress humans have already made in the realm of video games, it's easy to see how giant, Earth-sized computer simulations could one day exist. American astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson and CEO of SpaceX, Elon Musk, agreed with this theory, stating the odds that we're not living in a simulation are 1 in billions. Musk further went on to say, when Pong first appeared in the 1970s, the game consisted of a few pixels on a screen that simulated a 2D game of table tennis. 50 years later, we can use virtual reality headsets to enter 3D worlds and interact with lifelike simulated characters. But are we living in a simulated reality, or is it just some plausible hoax? Let's look at some examples, shall we? In 2017, a group of scientists at the University of Washington proved they could embed computer code into strands of DNA and alter the information stored in them. Look around and you'll see that everything in nature comprises math one way or the other, by glancing at the Fibonacci sequence. You get this sequence by adding two previous numbers in the sequence together so that 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, and so on. You get the golden ratio called phi by dividing two consecutive Fibonacci numbers. We see Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio everywhere. The number of petals on a flower is usually a Fibonacci number. Lilies have 3 petals, buttercups have 5, and a daisy has 34. The spacing between each petal is arranged in a circle according to the golden ratio. As trees grow, the number of branches they form is also a Fibonacci number. But this isn't limited to plants only. Animals too possess this ratio. The ratio of female to male honeybees in a colony is the golden ratio. The human body also to the ratio. The body follows the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5. 1 nose, 2 eyes, 3 limb segments, 5 fingers, 5 toes. The proportion of the body, like the length of your shoulder to your elbow and your elbow to your fingertips, is the golden ratio. From the spiral of a seashell to the spiral of a galaxy and everything in between, Fibonacci numbers are everywhere now. Some might say, well, this could all be a coincidence, that humans always look for patterns in chaos because we're programmed to. Ironically, with this defense, they end up still affirming the fact that we live in a simulation. No matter what we study, whether it be the size of an atom or the size of a galaxy, everything in the universe seems to follow a pattern and set of instructions, in other words, a program. Another thing that could suggest that we are living in a simulation is the Mandela effect. This was a phenomenon where a large group of people collectively remembered an event, fact, or detail one way, but turned out to be different from what is currently accepted as accurate. Named after the false memory some people had of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he was released in 1990 to become South Africa's president. Some believe the Mandela effect is caused by a parallel universe we live in. Others blame it on the butterfly effect, but the worldwide false remembering can't be explained. Or it could be thought of as a type of bug in the Matrix. What other credible clarification could have been given for such an error? Maybe along the line, the computing power of the civilization that created us dwindled and couldn't provide the needed energy required for our universe to operate at its efficiency. And as an outcome, the universe proceeded to correct itself, resulting in partial memory distortion in a vast number of people. An example of such distortion was the famous quote, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." But in fact, the evil queen instead says, "Magic mirror on the wall." Many people also remember the curious little monkey Curious George having a tail, but he doesn't have one. There are numerous other instances where many people's memories are distorted, a flaw in our reality. If the universe was a simulation, it could explain the problem we have in getting in contact with any extraterrestrial being. This is a concept in the field of astrophysics and the search for extraterrestrial life. It's named after physicist Enrico Fermi. The paradox arises from the apparent contradiction between the high probability of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations in our vast universe and the lack of evidence or contact with such civilizations. In other words, given the billions of stars in our galaxy and the billions of galaxies in the observable universe, there should statistically be numerous advanced civilizations capable of interstellar communication or travel. However, we have yet to detect any conclusive evidence of such civilizations, like radio signals, spacecraft, or any other signs of intelligent extraterrestrial life. The Fermi paradox raises the question, if there are so many potential opportunities for other advanced civilizations to exist, why haven't we encountered or observed any of them? But with the possibility that the universe is a simulation, we would have the answer to that question. It would simply be because we are low-level conscious entities in a world, or rather a simulation created by some higher forms of civilization, and the other beings we believe and refer to as aliens could be their next-door cosmic neighbors. But how would we know when we're just trapped in a simulation? If, up until now, you've not been able to convince yourself that there is more of an evident probability for us to be living in a simulation, then this last point should be enough to startle your perception. The Earth's history is recorded in its rocks. The geological timescale consists of layers of rocks that formed at different time periods during Earth's past. However, not all of Earth's history is recorded within layers of rock all around the world. That is, there is some unconformity. An unconformity is a gap between different aged rocks representing a time period that is missing from the geological record between two rock strata. The unconformity is caused by either a range in time where the deposition or accumulation of sediments stopped or was not continuous, or an area of rock that was eroded away before a new layer of sediments began accumulating. Although it's a topic of great concern to the geologist, let's borrow this great marvel as our own. You see, this unconformity serves as a means to better understand the Earth's past and history. The geological timescale not only represents the history of the Earth and its rocky structures, but also the history of life. However, you could choose to ignore it. A gap in the geological timescale is also a gap in the history of life on Earth. A theory that could explain this mystery is the snowball Earth theory. It hints that there have been numerous instances throughout Earth's history of intense glaciations or snowball recurrence. And the planet's surface was nearly completely covered in ice and snow throughout these events. All of this is thought to have happened between 2.4 billion and 700 million years ago, during the Proterozoic Eon. A period of time said to be the starting point for our world's evolutionary process. But an irrefutable observation still remains. Why is a massive chunk of the Earth's history missing? Nothing more clearly points to an artificial reality's existence in our universe. Let's assume our computers will continue to grow ever more powerful, becoming more efficient and capable. Let's say that at some point in the near future, for this speculation to work, we build some ridiculous planet-sized computer. A computer so powerful that it could simulate our entire universe, recreating all the physics, chemistry, and biology we experience in the natural world. If we also assume that consciousness is consciousness, regardless of where it resides, either in an organic brain or a digital one, then any simulated entities within the computer that gain consciousness will experience a world that is indistinguishable from ours. Once our descendants build such a computer, they will inevitably create countless simulated beings. Try to count how many creatures in video games have appeared and disappeared since we first developed the technology. Very quickly, the number of simulated conscious brains living in a computer will vastly outnumber the organic brains living in the real universe. If this ends up happening, it means we'd equally need a power source that could be able to handle the demands of the simulation. For that, we would need to be, at most, a Type 2 civilization. And if we think we'd be anywhere near our programmers, we may be mistaken, as they could be using our simulations to overcome the complex problems that may arise in their world. But that makes me wonder, why would they set up a simulation? Undoubtedly, the subject of why we were locked in this simulation has crossed your mind by now. The issue of why we exist lingers in our minds from time to time. We are born, grow up, live our lives, experience particular challenges, overcome them if conceivable, bring life into the world, and eventually meet our demise, which is inevitable, throwing the same question for future generations to contemplate. All of this appears to be a predetermined plan that we must all follow until our generation or those who come after us can respond satisfactorily. Thus, the question of why should be the final answer that our programmers could be looking for, or maybe they too are also stuck in a simulation. And this is just some very amusing loophole that we're all stuck in. For all we know, the question of why we were created, technological breakthroughs, or whatever, could be meticulously included as a variable in the simulation, all plotted out by this superior species. It's difficult to tell whether this reality is a simulation created by numerous higher creatures, or just one intelligent adolescent teenager constructing and running multiple realities simultaneously. As humans, we have been told repeatedly that we are limitless and have unlimited potential. If we could band together in unity to achieve a vast amount of achievements, we might become a variable unpredictable to our creators, and break out of their prismatic cage or matrix, and begin to rival them in terms of intellectual achievement and growth. Or could this very thought be what they implemented in us as part of their grand scheme? What do you think? It's been such an incredible journey we've encountered with information enough to cause our heads to spiral. And what's intriguing is, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of the universe's mysteries. But if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.